Good morning. I love that enthusiasm. My name is Karen C. Morales, and I serve on the board of the DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the clerk of the board, which means I try to keep our records in order. We want to welcome everyone to our open and inclusive community this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another as we walk those paths. First time and returning visitors, it is our custom to invite you to stand and give your name and where you are from, if you feel comfortable doing so. Are there any visitors this morning that would like to introduce themselves? That's okay. Welcome to anyone visiting today. Please join us after the service for coffee hour. We would love to have a chance to get to know you better. I will be there along with many of our members. Steve Cooper, our Director of Religious Education, will be present and happy to meet you as well. Have you noticed that coffee in Creeves Hall can be crowded and maybe a little intimidating? Grab your cup of coffee and come down to the lower annex to meet other visitors and a couple of folks from the Congregational Life Committee. That is, you can take the elevator down to the lowest level or go straight down the stairs and keep going down to find it. We will be looking forward to seeing you there. Our service can be heard outside the glass doors at the back of the sanctuary should anyone feel a need to step out of the service. A reminder that this morning is Coffee with the Board, or Ask Me Anything. It will be up the stairs for those of you who are unfamiliar with where the founder's room is. Just ask someone for direction. It's on the second floor at the other end of the building. And on that note, a number of people have asked us about our church-wide response to the coronavirus that's going around. We do have an emergency planning meeting this week to discuss our strategies going forward, ways we continue to be a community together and continue to conduct our business safely. And if you have any further questions, you can come to the Ask Me Anything after the service and we'd be happy to address it. As we begin our service, please silence all electronic devices. I love how many people reach in their pockets as I say.
Good morning. Today we welcome Reverend Scott Hull to our pulpit. Reverend Scott has recently decided to write a new chapter in his professional life. After 25 years in the corporate world, he left to attend Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago. Graduating this past May, he has been welcomed into preliminary fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association and was recently ordained into the ministry. Reverend Scott visits us today from Frederick, Maryland, where he and his wife Julia, also a seminarian at Meadville Lombard, live with their now teenage twins. Welcome to Reverend Scott.
Good morning. It's a delight and an honor and a blessing to be here with you this morning. Even my young friend, so happy to hear you. I want to thank the Reverend Mike for his ongoing and inspiring leadership in these troubling times, but also for his invitation to join you this morning here. I want to express my profound gratitude for Kelly and Vera for their help this morning, making this morning happen. I also want to say thanks to all of my young assistants who I know will be helping me out. Thank you all for your ministry. To the people, I want to bring you greetings from your friends and neighbors in far away, I think it's that way, Frederick, Maryland, at the congregation where I am also, my wife and I are also members. It is really good to be here. You have a beautiful space. It's fun to see these spaces and join these thriving communities whenever possible. So thank you. Before we start, I want to name two things that kind of sitting on my heart this morning, in addition to what we're going to talk about. But the first is the election. I want to just put it out there that whatever aspirations you may have had or still have, whatever hopes you may have had or still have, I want you to hold on to those and still vote. So please hold that one. Second, the coronavirus. Those of you that are worried about this, those that you are affected by, that have friends and family that are affected by that, know that we are thinking of you, praying with you, staying with you, holding you in our hearts. And in our community here today, we are going to maybe try something a little different, maybe hold those loving and warm handshakes and great big hugs, and maybe consider a Vulcan salute, or possibly some kind of awkward elbow bump. Appreciate that. Just wanted to keep everybody hale and healthy. So this morning is about transformation. It's about saying no in order to say yes. It's about change and about power. Because here we are. With everything and always, here we are, gloriously human, fearfully and wonderfully made. We are what we have been waiting for. We are all we've got. And luckily, we are all we need. That said, from time to time, sometimes we need a shake. So today I want to talk about that, about us, about our lives, about the lives we are living and the lives we may yet live. Hopefully there'll be something we can carry forward. But do remember Reverend Mike will be back next week. Okay, so all of that is in the future. Right now, I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and let it go. Take another deep breath. And over the next few moments, keep taking some deep breaths. Begin to let go of whatever it is you need to let go of to be more fully present in this time and in this place. You ready? Then let's begin. Our opening words today come from presidential candidate Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. Maybe you've heard them before, but I think they're worth repeating. She writes this: "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we begin to let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Would my young friends come forward to light the chalice? There we go.
Today's chalice lighting words come to us from the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom, who writes, "Here today, in this place, and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know that we can, even now, even today, change ourselves and change our world. May this chalice we light our way."
Thank you, Harper. And now, if you all please arise in body or spirit and sing our opening hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, and please remain standing for our affirmation afterwards. Now let us speak the affirmation of our church. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We're going hands-free. This is the part in the service where the sound tech goes, "Oh my goodness, what is he doing?" All right, so if I've got some young friends that would do me a favor, I need help. I need a lot of help generally, but today I specifically need help. I need some help. If anybody would be willing to come forward, I've got signs that people need to read, so I need a bunch of billboards. Is anybody willing to come forward and help me with that? Come on up. Come on up. Let's get you high up here so we can be seen. Why don't you guys take some space? I've got a bunch of these. I got cool ones. I'll even recruit from the field if I don't get enough volunteers. That puts you all on notice, by the way. Yeah, you're in the splash zone, that first 2 rows. Okay. So when I was a kid, I got asked a question. And it was a kind of a scary question. It was a horrible question. Anybody here ever read that book? The Terrible, Horrible, No Good Questions book, right? It's a really awesome book. I don't recommend necessarily moving to Australia, but I do think that that's a really cool book. And in that book, there's some really awful questions. And the question that I got asked when I was a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? at first it was okay, right? I was like, oh, I have no idea. I want to do all of the things. But as I got older, I got more and more nervous. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about that question and why we shouldn't be nervous, okay? All right. So for those of us that may be not certain about what we want to be when we grow up, I went to where you would normally go, to our Google overlords, and asked them what we might want to be when we grow up, right? It's a good question. So I found a list of job titles. These are actual jobs you could have applied for at some point. I did not make these up. These are real. So keep them in mind. Are you ready? The first one, near and dear to my heart, in-house philosopher. It's a real job. Does anybody here want to be an in-house philosopher, or you want to hold out for something better? I'm going to wear this one. This one's my job. Okay, here's another one. Corporate magician. That's pretty awesome. Who wants to be a magician? Maybe? Oh, we got somebody in the back row. Here, why don't we just pass this back? All volunteers get to play. Just go ahead and pass that back. Excellent. Corporate magician. Now, you guys are really holding out for some good stuff. Here's a good one, then. Theme park designer. Who wants to be does anybody want to be a theme park designer? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Here, you hold that. All right. I didn't believe this, but it is a job. Chief troublemaker. Chief troublemaker. All right, yeah, Ben. All right, this is all yours. Here you go. Apropos. There we go. Space travel agent. Space travel agent. All right. Just go ahead and pass this one back. I see a hand back there. Thank you. How about this one? This one may be worthy of a fight. So we're going to be careful with this one. Chocolate taster. Who wants to be a chocolate taster? Do you want to taste chocolate as a job? Do you want to taste chocolate as a job? I do. Who wants to be a chocolate taster? What? You don't like chocolate? There we go. Here you go. Chocolate taster in the crowd. Here's another one. Actual job title, I promise. Director of fun. Yay. Who wants to be a director? There you go. I was wondering. There you go. Nice work. I'm not sure where this goes, but zombie. All right. Zombie. All right, there we go. It may be a Hollywood thing. I have no idea. Director of making people happy. There's a lot of hands for that. Where? Oh, yay! You made me happy. That's awesome. Here's another cool one. Crayon evangelist. What's that? Oh, what's an evangelist, my friend? We have a long conversation. Mom, Dad, let's check in at the coffee break. Crayon evangelist. Here, you can hold that just for now. Just for now. You don't have to be this. Just want to hold on. Try the idea out. And for those of you that are a little frustrated with today's, society, politics, anybody feeling the pull of this? Professional truth teller. Yeah, yeah. There's an adult for that one. I got it. There you go. Professional truth teller. That becomes more important because you guys probably do that all the time as it is. Dream alchemist. I have no idea. It sounds awesome. Dream alchemist. Any takers? All right. Got a bunch more. Yeah. Here you go. Dream alchemist. I love it. How about a galactic viceroy of research excellence? Actual job title. Yes. Dean of pizza. All right. What is a dean? There we go. How about this one? Should we just give this one to the kids, or do you all want to take it? Mischief champion. Oh, we've already got this. Would you like to be my mischief champion? Just hold it. You don't have to choose it forever. Just for a moment. The cool thing that I didn't know when I was looking for jobs when I was young is how much variety there is out there in the world. Sometimes we lose track of that, right? We lose track of it when we were kids. Did it turn off? When we're kids, we have this sense that maybe we're going to end up someplace. What I want you guys to do today, I want you to do this. If nothing else, I want you to remember that no matter what we carry today, doesn't have to be what we carry tomorrow. We can change our minds, okay? We can change our minds. How about some elbow bumps all the way around as we sing our kids out? We're going to stand up here, we do our first verse, and then we're going to go. Oh yeah, you're awesome. Oh, that's even better. There we go. Thank you for your audience participation. Now is the time in our service when we can share our life's joys and concerns with the congregation, knowing that a joy shared is a joy increased, and a concern shared is a concern diminished, if only in part. If it's meaningful to you to do so, you're invited to come forward to the microphone up front, state your name, and briefly share the joy or concern that's on your heart this morning. You may now come forward. concerns in our hearts, and all of those joys and concerns that are held silently, I invite you to hear the prayer of W.E.B. Du Bois, who offered us this. The prayer of our souls is a petition of persistence, not for the one good deed or the single thought, but deed on deed and thought on thought, until day calling unto day shall make a life worth living. Please remain seated as we sing together hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Good morning. Thinking about why DUC is important to me and my family, my kids come first. Our first visit was almost 10 years ago. It was April 2010. And at that time, our oldest, Alex, was only 6. And our twins, Ben and Doug, who just provided some comic relief a few minutes ago, were only 18 months old. So not only having kids in the Youth Religious Education program, but also being a part of the Youth RE committee for I don't know how many years, including a span of actually chairing the committee, made me really appreciate both what our children get in the Youth RE programs, but also just how much goes into preparing for it. Did you know that there actually used to be an assistant to the RE director who would help with preparing all the lessons and preparing all the classrooms? And do you know that even now, if you volunteer to teach our youth, everything you need will be in the room when you enter? I love the ideas and skills that we offer our youth through our religious education program. You'll actually be able to see a lot of it on display at the Coming of Age service in May, when our 7th and 8th graders will be sharing their credo statements that they've been working on in the class all year. And full disclosure, I'm actually co-teaching that class this year, and I actually had to make sure I wasn't teaching this morning before I agreed to come up here. This is an amazing class where we actually ask the students to reckon with their beliefs over the course of the year, assisted by an amazing group of mentors. And a small plug, keep an eye out for requests that they're going to be making for travel-size supplies. They're going to be doing a social justice project with their mentors. And as soon as they get all that planning done, that should be coming. Now, another part of our youth programming is the Our Whole Lives, aka OWL program, which offers age-appropriate comprehensive sexual education to our youth. I'm actually certified to teach the 1st and 2nd graders or the 5th and 6th graders, but we also offer classes to 8th and 9th graders and 11th and 12th graders. And given the name of the program, Our Whole Lives, there are actually classes for adults as well. It's just been a while since we've offered them here. Before Alex took the first class, I remember a parent of the older kids saying that one of the things they loved about the program was that their kids were the ones on the playground who would actually correct the kids who had the wrong information. And well, I knew that was something I wanted my kids to have. Now, the past several years, I've also had the joy of participating in our wonderful choir, led by Vicki Hellier. I had long loved the choir Sundays and hearing what amazing creations Vicki was able to arrange for our congregation. And at this point, I'm extremely grateful that about 2.5 years ago, I actually joined the choir so that I could experience the incredible magic of Vicki's leadership of the choir myself. We support this church because we value the beloved community that we found here nearly 10 years ago and have become a part of ourselves. Watching the Youth RE program persist despite a reduction in the paid staff, knowing that we're soon going to have to conduct a search to find a new choir director, the fiscal pressure on our congregation is real. So I ask, what do you value in this space? And what are you willing to give to assure that it continues into the next church year? Thank you.
Thank you. We say that the offering is a sacrament of our free church. We are free to explore, free to feel, free to challenge, free to change. We are guided by our principles, rooted in our sources, and welcoming to difference. We are Unitarian Universalists, and this is stewardship season. It's the giving season. And while God may love a cheerful giver, I want to be quite clear, we will absolutely accept generosity from a grouch. The practice of generosity is as central to our personal well-being as it is to our institutional health. Our church and all of its ministries are supported entirely and solely through the generosity of our friends and members. As we prepare to take this morning's offering, may we each look into not just our wallets or our checkbooks to see how much we have with us, but let us look into our hearts and see what is available here. How much love, how much faith, how much gratitude, how much hope, and let us take an offering from that generous account. You are now invited to participate in the blessing of giving. The ushers may now come forward.
Today's reading is from the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed. Until recently, Professor Mark taught at Meadville Lombard. He's served UU congregations in Rochester and Toronto and is the author of several books, including Black Pioneers in a White Denomination. He writes, "We are all dying, our lives always moving toward completion. We need to learn to live with death and to understand that death is not the worst of all events. We need to fear not death, but life. Empty lives, loveless lives, lives that do not build upon the gifts that each of us have been given, lives that are like living deaths, lives which never take the time to savor and appreciate, lives in which we never pause to breathe deeply. What we need to fear is not death, but squandering the lives we have been miraculously given. So let me die laughing, savoring one of life's crazier moments. Let me die holding the hand of one I love and recalling that I tried to love and was loved in return. Let me die remembering that life has been good and that I did what I could. But today, just remind me that I am dying so that I can live, savor, and love with all my heart."
With all my heart. I like that reading. Today's sermon inspiration came from Thomas King's book, The Truth About Stories. Anybody ever read that one, come across that one? Just the seminarian in the front. That's fine, that's fine. Of the 542,000 books I acquired during seminary, this book, written by a Native American writer and activist, was one of my favorites. The book explores how stories shape who we are and how we interact with other people. And this big idea captured me. We human beings tell a lot of stories, some good, some not so good. And today, in this season of Lent, I thought it might be a good idea to explore that. Many of you come to Unitarian Universalism from the Christian tradition. So you might remember that Lent is a time of sacrifice, a time when we're asked to go through our spiritual inventory, right? And let go of things that are keeping us from truth, light, and love. And in that spirit, I've come to believe that the way Mr. King tells his stories can create a way of seeing, a way of understanding, a way of framing up our lives. Now, the book has 5 different autobiographical essays, and each from different parts of his life. Yet he starts each of them more or less the same way, like this. There is a story that I know. It's about the earth and how it floats in space on the back of a turtle. I've heard this story many times, and each time someone tells the story, it changes. Sometimes the change is simply in the voice of the storyteller. Sometimes the change is in the details. But in all the tellings of all the tellers, the world never leaves the turtle's back, and the turtle never swims away. One time, a young girl in the audience asked about the turtle and the earth. If the earth was on the back of a turtle, what was below the turtle? Another turtle, the storyteller told her. And below that turtle, another turtle. And below that, why, another turtle. The girl began to laugh, enjoying the game, I imagine. So, how many turtles are there? The storyteller shrugged. No one knows for sure, but it's turtles all the way down. The truth about stories is that that's all we are. I love that story. But I want to take a moment to hear that last sentence again. The truth about stories is that that's all we are. That's pretty good. Yet it's the other end, how Mr. King ends each essay. That's where things tie up. He writes, "The story I just told you, it's yours now. Do with it what you will. Tell it to friends. Forget it. But don't say in the years to come that you would have lived your life differently if only you had heard it. You've heard it now." And this is where I want to go with today's sermon. I want to talk about stories, our stories, the stories of our lives. At this point, though, I need to ask an indulgence. And in the spirit of my friend, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, I'm going to ask you now to turn to your neighbor. Yes, that neighbor. No, really, you can turn. You know I can see you. Okay, great. Now, say to your neighbor, "Neighbor? Oh, neighbor." There we go. We get to write the stories of our lives. Amen. Well done. All right. Bunch of comedians, all of you. Yes, we get to write the stories of our lives. And I wanted us to say that out loud today, of all days, maybe every day. But with all of our ongoing struggles against injustice and oppression, with all of the hate and the fear that we're hearing in the news, with all of our daily challenges of life and work and family, it's worth remembering that our lives and the way we live them, that's the text of our own personal resistance, our testament to resilience, our manifesto against cynicism and despair. In the end, our stories are all we have. How we write them matters. So while I have you captive this morning, I want to do a bit of creative visualization. And I know you're excited. It's okay. I'll be gentle. What I want you to do right now is imagine that you are the author of the novel that is your life. Better still, imagine that the doings are the words and phrases, the anecdotes and the parables, the story arcs and plot devices of that novel. Got it? Yeah? All right. So, okay, we'll get there. Here's the twist. I want you to imagine that living in such a way that this novel that we're writing is one we would recommend to friends. Yeah, that's different, isn't it, right? Living it is one thing. Living it in a way that your life is a story someone else might find worth reading, that's very different. It's not my idea. I borrowed it from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche from his book Twilight of the Idols, where he described the meaning of life. He described it as a life that's lived with integrity and perfect authenticity. Authenticity, that aligning of action with belief and desire, regardless, perhaps even heedless of pressure or influence. For Nietzsche, your life was a canvas. Authenticity was your paint, and it was making art out of authenticity that would make your life compelling to others. Ultimately, we should look to no role models, gather no advice from friends, seek no guidance from our heroes. Instead, we should strike a path as unique as we are. And only then will our work, our life's work, the work that is our life, only then will it be truly meaningful. All right, so you might say that Nietzsche's a bit dramatic. But he's also provocative, right? And while we could certainly explore the life is art idea some other day, the idea that our lives are a novel that we are supposed to write, I think that's one worth considering every day. Because if we let our culture, our careers, and the general busyness of our regular lives distract us from our one true job, the job of living, then we're in trouble. We're in trouble because who is going to do that for us? We are all loaded up, aren't we? We reflexively overfill every hour. Our brimming days, a slippery, sliding slope into months and years, and the next thing we know, we are saying to each other, oh, wow, where did all the time go? Writing the script of our intentional life, one full of things we value, like love, service, spirituality, justice. Well, that was just a wish list we handed off to some ghostwriter some years ago. As my friend Ferris Bueller once said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. Can I confess something? This was my fear, my FOMO, right? My fear of missing out. 5 years ago, I was successful. I had a job, a great job. I was a corporate executive. I led large teams. I talked CEOs out of millions of dollars. I had bonus checks. I was also working an undetermined number of hours every week. I had conference calls starting at 7 a.m. I was answering email at midnight on Sundays. I traveled every week. I spent more time with my boss than my wife, more time with my clients than my kids. And while I am genuinely baffled as to how any of that happened to a guy who once dreamed of being a philosopher, I'm reminded of John Lennon, who said, life was what happened when you're making other plans. 25 years ago, I had plans. I didn't mean to drop those plans. I had reasons. I was broke. I needed a job. I made what I hoped was the best decision at the time, every time, from the choices that I felt I had available to me, and in between, life happened. But I wonder what would have happened to my story if someone had stopped me in all of my busyness, looked me in the eye like I am looking at you this morning, and said to me, it doesn't have to be this way. If you're like me, you look into the faces of the kids in the congregation and imagine who they might one day be. I'm pretty sure we all do this with kids at one time or another. The potential that they represent could be overwhelming. But when was the last time you looked in the mirror and saw that same potential? When you last asked yourself, am I the person that I once imagined? And if I'm not, when am I going to take up that project? When am I going to start on that chapter? Now, truth is, none of us come to, or better still, come back to a project like this from scratch. We've all lived a bit, regardless of exactly how old today found us. Metaphorically speaking, the novel that is our life has at least a few pages filled in with some furious scribbling. And that's okay. In fact, that's exactly right. But what I want us to do with this next page is to see if, perhaps for the first time in a long time, that what gets put down is at least in some measure still up to us. Yes, certain things have to be there. Yes, some of us have more pages to work with. All that is true. And as the author of our stories, we get to decide the shape of at least some of our story. Now, I should pause here and note that change is often easier said than done. Trapped as I was in my professional life, I had no idea what else I could do, much less what I wanted to do. Change was unimaginable. I suppose you could say I had writer's block. Maybe some of you feel that way too. So if you are one of those wondering what the next page might look like, approaching it with some uncertainty, some trepidation, some now what? For you, I'd like to offer up a particular literary device, the plot twist. You know what I'm talking about, right? The story's going along one way and whack, something happens, some big change, something unexpected. That's the key. It's the unexpected part. Something happens. And as the author of the story that is our life, this is where we get to throw our readers a curveball, just to keep them on their toes, just to keep them guessing. So if you're like me and need some inspiration, it turns out, again, our Google overlords have come up with long lists of examples of plot twists. And in that spirit, I offer up the following for our collective consideration and inspiration. Did you know that Walt Disney was fired from his job because, quote, he lacked imagination? Comic book fans? Anybody? Some? Stan Lee of Marvel Comics published his first comic book at age 39. Anybody like to cook or eat? Right? Julia Childs published her first cookbook when she was 50. Her PBS show started 1 year after that. One name you may not remember or know, but you should. Frances Woofenden. Any bonus round people? Extra points for this one? Frances Woofenden. She's won over 100 medals in competitive water skiing. She started water skiing when she was 50. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Giorgio Armani, maybe you know that name, started designing clothes after his 60th birthday. Laura Ingalls Wilder published her first book, Little House in the Big Woods, when she was 65. Painters, anybody? Visual arts? Grandma Moses started painting when she was 76. Gladys Burrell ran her first marathon at 86. And for those of us that believe in salvation through bibliography, Nola Ox completed her bachelor's degree when she was 95 and went immediately into a master's program, which she completed 3 years later. So my favorite is Georgina Harwood. She celebrated her 100th birthday by skydiving. And then followed that up with a swim with great white sharks. Can you imagine what that birthday party invitation looked like? All right. So if you twist my arm, I will confess that the younger me took the idea of plot lines and the Write My Life as a novel maybe a tad too seriously. For example, one of my old journals actually has the line, and I quote, "I want to write my deeds in the book of life with words of fire." Look, all I can say are there are worse inspirations than The Lord of the Rings. But this does bring me to an important point. Plot twists don't have to be life-threatening to be good, right? The point is to shake things up, not require a dance with a Nazgul or a skydive with a shark. Let me say it this way. Just because our lives are not fantastical in scope does not mean that our stories are less worthy. To quote the wizard Gandalf the Grey, because you should whenever you can, some believe it is only great power that can hold evil in check, but that is not what I have found. I found it is the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. I take great comfort in these words. Given some of my recent life choices, I will probably never be rich. This is a shame because I would be an excellent rich person. It's true. But please believe me when I say that no one was more surprised than I was when I finally realized that being me was more important than being rich or successful. I had it wrong. And it literally took me decades to figure that out. I had to discover that my greatest joy came from those around me. That rather fundamental realization is what led me to being here with you this morning and telling you at least some of the things I wish someone had told me. No, I won't be rich. And no, there will be no Mount Doom or words of fire for me. Instead, I got a different sort of gift, a chance to live a different sort of life. And as we turn to our close, I want to tell you about another of my own roadblocks, something that stalled me for years, and something I suspect may be a roadblock for some of you thinking about your story this morning. It's this. It turns out there really is no such thing as a perfect story. No perfect stories. There are a lot of reasons for this, but one of the main reasons, it's just a fact that there will always be more to do, more to say, more to learn, and more to explore. There will never be enough pages. The possibility of life, the possibilities in life are endless. And the crime that is the human condition is that we are only given just so much time, with no sequels and no do-overs. Now, what I take from that is that mistakes have to happen. Like many characters in my favorite books, I am going to get it wrong. We are all going to get it wrong. We don't have time to make it perfect. And just as tragically, our story of a life lived with perfect authenticity will probably never happen. And you know what? So what? The sooner we realize that the mistakes not only will happen, but are exactly what make our lives interesting, what make our stories human, then maybe the sooner we can take a risk that creates, a risk that changes things, a cliffhanger maybe that sets up our next chapter. So in that spirit, I invite you to consider this. We are all saved from perfection. Wait. I'm a minister. I can do that. I can do better than that. Okay. Please join me in the attitude of prayer. By the power invested in me on this day, by the Spirit of life and love, and in accordance with natural law and human nature, I hereby absolve you, my friends and neighbors. I absolve you of the sin of perfection. Ego te absolvo. There. Now you are absolutely free to make those plot twists really interesting. My friends, change is an act of creation. We may not be God, but our lives, our stories, those are ours to write. We get to write the stories of our lives. And yes, that means you, and you, and you, and you, all of us. And in this Lenten season, I invite you to imagine a pen in your hand or your fingers over the keyboards. Feel that page. Your doings will be the words and phrases, the anecdotes and the parables, the story arcs and the plot devices of the story that you have yet to write. We are our stories. We are those turtles, we human beings. We are stories all the way down. Remember Nietzsche, a meaningful life is a novel that you'd recommend to a friend. That idea is yours now. Write it down. Tell it to friends. Live it boldly, or forget it entirely. Do with it what you will. But don't say in the years to come that you would have lived your life differently if only you had heard it. You've heard it now. Because the truth about stories is that's all we are. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn 1015, I Know I Can. I'd like to share this closing thought from Nanea Hoffman, who writes, "None of us are getting out of here alive. So please stop treating yourself like an afterthought. Eat the delicious food, walk in the sunshine, jump in the ocean, say the truth that you've been carrying in your heart like hidden treasure. Be silly, be kind, be weird. There's no time for anything else." We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. Those we will carry in our hearts until we are together again. And as we prepare to leave this place, continue your journey in love and care for one another and care for this, our earth. Do justice and make peace. And know that wherever you go, whatever taste or touch you've had in this time or place of hope, joy, love, or peace, that goes with you out into the world. We are different for having spent this time together. Our stories are all we are. Live them boldly and with thanksgiving. Go in peace.